Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Talking just a little bit about the rally that took place in Hot Springs. And I had a commenter on our Facebook Live page, Billy Sessions, who was a part of it, and who actually does travel the country and goes to these type of events. And so I reached out to him, and I want to just welcome to the program, welcome Mr. Billy Sessions to the program. Billy, thanks for coming on, sir.
You bet.
So just tell me, Billy, a little bit about, I want to get my head wrapped around, first of all, what it is, the rally on Hot Springs, what you were trying to accomplish, what your group, what their intentions are.
Well, it's more or less to support the monument. It's called Confederate Square. It's been going on for a couple of years. James Dale Brock was one that puts it on. We've seen the Confederate monuments be under attack for quite some time, along with the Confederate flag. So we've been doing this to support the monument kind of as a prior thing, because we know they're trying to take them down everywhere.
And so this was the third year that this has been a rally that took place on Hot Springs, down in Hot Springs, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it was for the most part, and I want to talk about Charlottesville here in a little bit, but I just want people to know what exactly went on in Hot Springs this weekend. I mean, I know it was mostly peaceful, but I also know that the Antifa people were there. The Antifa people were there, and I mean, how many of the counter-protesters, and were they dressed up like ninjas the way they are in the mainstream press?
Oh, yeah. Well, we were coming back from Memphis. We'd been to Lexington, Kentucky at the monument there, swung by Memphis. We was on our way back to Hot Springs, and all this blowed up. You know, we have the event every month. So, I mean, we wasn't thinking nothing about it. We were on our way back to Hot Springs, and, I mean, Facebook went crazy. The rumor was put out that it was a KKK rally. Well, we had to come on and basically debunk that, because we're not white supremacists. We have no affiliation with any white supremacist group. So we had people, see Hot Springs, concerned.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, after Charlottesville, everybody's concerned about that type of thing, and we just had to clarify. And we gathered up with law enforcement and briefed them on what we were planning on doing, and they prepared for it. And we told them what kind of opposition we thought we would be facing.
Yeah. And
we were pretty accurate on that number. And there was 75 of us, roughly 65, 75, been throughout the day. And there were around 350, 400 of the left. You had Antifa, Redneck Revolt, BLM, and Black Panthers.
Wow.
And yes, they were dressed up like ninjas.
Okay, so they were in the all black and the having their faces covered. I saw there in some reports it did make that there was one point where the Antifa people charged at you guys. Describe what was going through your head when that happened.
Well, Paul, not a whole lot was going through my head. I've been to 11 of these things. And we were marching down the sidewalk. We were marching toward the monument. She was going to lay flowers on the monument, of all the fallen Confederate soldiers. And we were walking on the other side of the highway from where they were having their event. See, they had a permitted event down the road from us as a counter-protest.
Okay.
And there were about 350 of them there gathered. And when they seen us marching down the other side of the road, and it wasn't all of us, it was probably about 30 of us, going to the monument, they all rushed to the sidewalk, gathered about 50 of them, and they charged across the road with their fists reared back, hollering obscenities. And, I mean, they were coming on a full-blown attack toward us. And one officer from Hot Springs PD, I said, they're attacking, get ready. And he come running and throwed himself in front of that angry mob that was pouring toward us, and how he stopped them, I don't know.
Wow.
They were actually swinging their fists out around him, trying to hit us. It's on video, Channel 11. As we had about 2 foot in between the sidewalk and the wall of the building squeezed through. And they did take some of them to jail.
So this was, about 3 of them to jail, right? Is that what I read in the reports?
I think there was a total of 4 of them went to jail. They took a native Hot Springs guy to jail for a federal felony for burning a Confederate flag on top of the hedge bushes on federal property.
So where do these Antifa people come from? We have an Arkansas audience. I just want them to know what can happen. I mean, they were bussing these people in. Is that correct?
Yes.
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hey, folks, welcome to the program today. My name is Paul. Thank you so much for being with us. So, yesterday's show, we spent the majority of the time talking about Jake Files, Senator Jake Files from District 8, that is Fort Smith area, northwest Arkansas, and the Arkansas Democrat Party. We were able to break the news that they were calling for Jake Files' resignation finally, after months of terrible press and pretty obvious headlines that are going to attract the FBI. And the FBI, of course, with their affidavit saying that at least one person thinking he committed wire fraud and all the evidence out there. Jake Files still hasn't resigned. More importantly, the Arkansas GOP and the Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson has not requested his resignation, have not come out and publicly said they think Jake Files should resign. And I don't expect them to. And it's pretty sad, but I don't expect them to, because what they're trying to do is play political chess. They want to make sure that Matt Pitch, who's a state representative who wants to run for Jake Files' seat, is not prohibited in any way from walking into that spot. And so they are going to do, in my opinion, the dishonorable thing and deprive the folks of District 8 from a senator that is not accused by the FBI of committing a crime. In this upcoming fiscal session next year, they're going to deprive them of that. So that yes men, people who are loyal, people who are chosen few. You know what what's interesting? It's a new term that it just kind of came to me. Intellectual Republicans. That's what they want. Intellectual Republicans. We need some intellectual Republicans. That's what they like to say. That's what they like to say in the Republican establishment and the higher ranks. We need intellectual Republicans. Folks, what they are doing is a scheme. What they are perpetuating is wrong. And I never thought I would say this, but former Democrat Governor Mike Beebe and the Arkansas Democrat Party have more integrity than our current leadership does. And I'll give you a perfect example. Flashback on Tuesday, August the 20th, embattled Senator, this was in 2013, Senator Paul Bookout from Northeast Arkansas resigned. You know why he resigned? because of some campaign finance issues and because Democrat Governor Mike Beebe and the Arkansas Democrat Party said, it's time for you to go. That's why Paul Bookout resigned. Do you know when he resigned? He resigned August of 2013. August 20th is the headline I have from the Arkansas Times. It's August 23rd. Do you know what happened? Back in 2013, after Paul Bookout resigned, there was a special election called. And the special election had a new senator in its place by January. The runoff election in January. So right now, if Jake Files were to resign, as he should, it would trigger a special election. And it would ensure that the people of District 8 have a senator in place for the fiscal session next year. It would also ensure that predetermined candidates who have already pledged their fealty and their loyalty to Governor Asa Hutchinson, like Matt Pitch, would not be able to run, because if you already hold an elected office like Matt Pitch does, State Representative Matt Pitch, then you can't run, because then that would have a cascading effect. You have to have more special elections, which is expensive. This, ladies and gentlemen, is shameless. These people are plotters. They are so obsessed with getting their agenda passed, growing government. They are so obsessed with stopping limited government, grassroots politicians to being in there, that they want yes men. They want moderates, or what they call intellectual Republicans, at all costs. And it turns my stomach, and it should turn your stomach too. I mean, they are doing this. I hope, my call's still the same. I'd love to say I'm wrong. I wish the news would break right now that Asa Hutchinson calls for Jake Files' resignation. I wish the Arkansas Republican Party would say, Jake Files needs to resign. I wish they'd say it right now, but something tells me that they're not going to do it. They're never going to do it. They're going to sit on this. They're going to hope you don't find out. They're going to hope the media quits and gives up on this story after this week. And if you notice, a lot of them already have. It's a huge story, and yet nothing. For the most part today, nothing. This is a deliberate attempt by the Republican Party to disenfranchise the people of District 8 with a honest senator who is not being accused of crimes, who is not being mentioned in an FBI affidavit, who's the FBI hasn't searched, his office and seized the cell phones and the laptops. This has got to stop, folks, and I don't know what else to do. I don't know what else to tell you. They don't want Jake Files to resign, even though what he's done. They want him to continue to get his salary. They want him to continue to get per diem if he is showing up to meetings, which he's probably not. Also, that they can get the right person in there. And yeah, I've heard Matt Pitch is a perfectly nice guy, but he's a yes man. Matt Pitch, Representative Matt Pitch, I think this was his second term. He's a yes man. In his first term, he ran a bill that would have set up a government agency to track your odometer, so that they could then tax each car in Arkansas based on how many miles you actually drive on the highway. I mean, talk about government intervention. And you know what he'll say? No, Paul, that was for electric cars. Yeah, electric cars today, and everybody else tomorrow, once you figure out, well, this is actually a really efficient way to make sure everybody pays their fair share of what they drive. Give me a break. The government has no business in my odometer, but Matt Pitch didn't think so. That didn't stop him. This is the kind of guy that they want in there. And I had people back when we broke that story, or back when we were talking about that story back in 2015, people were like, Matt Pitch, he just kind of got, caught up, and, he's really a conservative. I mean, he really is a conservative. I am so sick of other politicians apologizing for these guys making stupid decisions, making unintellectual decisions. That's what they want you to think. In their mind, we need intellectual Republicans. That means figuring out new ways on how to tax us, figuring out new ways on how to take our money, whether it's the internet tax, with, I guess, Jake Files is an intellectual Republican. Have you seen how he runs this business? I guess Jake Files is an intellectual Republican. Have you seen how he laundered that money? It wasn't very complicated. That doesn't seem very intellectual to me. These Republicans, they want to be the James Moriartys of their day. They want to that's the kind of intellectual Republicans that they want. That's how they think of themselves. But they're not. They're not that clever, clearly. They are they're completely transparent in what they're trying to do here. Do you think Jake Files should resign? Better yet, of course you do. Do you think that the governor should say, hey, I'm the de facto leader of the Republican Party? Do you think Doyle Webb should say, you know what? And look, I like Doyle Webb. He came on this program a couple weeks ago, and you know what he said? He said, if we have a problem with the Republican Party, primaries are the thing. Primaries, ladies and gentlemen, are the new general elections because everybody's a Republican. General elections in Arkansas now are actually the primaries, and you've got your moderate, a person who worships the R at the end of Ace's name, and then you have the conservative. That's basically what this is at this point. But I do like Doyle Webb. I've talked to him many times. I like him. But I'm going to be very honest with you here. It's time for Doyle Webb to say to Asa, sir, I'm sorry, but Jake Files needs to resign, and if that means that Matt Pitch can't just walk into the Senate and has to be a state representative again, so be it. That's what we need out of this party. That's what we got to have. That's not what we're not seeing that right now. It's an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment. The Arkansas Democrat Party, under the leadership of Mike Beebe, told Paul Bookout he needed to resign, and he resigned. And guess what? You don't think Mike Beebe knew there was a good chance that when he did that a Republican would waltz in, and one did. John Cooper, not much of a Republican. Matter of fact, that's a whole nother can of worms. John Cooper said he was against Obamacare, Arkansas Obamacare, but then he went down and supported it. But that's a whole nother thing. That's a bigger problem in and of itself. But it can be done. Special elections can be done. And matter of fact, I mean, come on, Asa, you can't go find another yes man to run in a special election. Come on, of course you can go find another yes man to run in a special election. Yes, you can. You can do it. Yes, we can. Say it with me. But in all respect, Chairman Doyle Webb, you need to say, look, we're calling for Jake Files' resignation. I'm sorry, Governor. I know you want Matt Pitch. I know you do. I know you want Matt Pitch to be the next senator for Fort Smith and District 8. I get it. But guess what? Jake Files needs to resign now because the people of District 8 don't need Jake Files in the state Senate in a fiscal session. They don't need that. They need somebody else in there, number one. Number two, to be disingenuous and be dishonest and just say, well, we'll wait. And because here's the thing. Jake Files will resign. Mark my words. Jake Files will resign. The Republican Party of Arkansas and Governor Hutchinson are planning on having Jake Files resign. I can tell you that right now. I won't tell you how I know that, but I can tell you that right now. Jake Files is going to resign, but they're going to make sure they do it when there can be no special election. And that is wrong. That is the kind of politics that people hate, and you better hope they don't find out about it. Because if they do, all you guys are going to lose power. So, here's the deal. I think we should call the governor's office. I don't know what else to do. That's what I think we should do. We should call the governor's office. We should say, hey, would you just please do the right thing and ask Jake Files to resign? This guy is destroying the brand. There are Republicans that listen to this show that think I'm too far to the right. I get you. I got you on that. I understand. That's part of the debate. You're telling me that you disagree with me, though, that for the sake of the Republican Party brand, and we could define what the Republican Party brand is however we want to. You can disagree with the way I define it, which is right now lukewarm. They lie to get elected. They don't implement the party platform. But you can disagree with me on that. But you're telling me that a guy like Jake Files not resigning, that the party not taking the bull by the horns and doing the right thing here, you're telling me that's good for the Republican Party of Arkansas? I think not. Come on, intellectual Republicans. Let's actually be intellectual. Let's actually see, you got a guy who's accused of having his employee go open a bank account in the FBI affidavit and him taking taxpayer money and pocketing it, having her empty the bank account, give him a cashier's check, and then the rest in cash. You're telling me that's good for the Republican Party of Arkansas's image? We know exactly what this is. Take a loss. Get over it. Take a loss and get over it, okay? Go find somebody else who's loyal. There should be a special election called tomorrow. We should know the dates by tomorrow. Jake Files should have resigned yesterday. Anyway, if you guys want to call the governor's office, the phone number on his website is 501-682-2345. I would encourage you to do so and be nice about it, be congenial about it, but just say, come on, because you never know. Maybe Ace has been busy. Maybe he hasn't read the news. Maybe he doesn't know what Jake Files is now accused of doing. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he hasn't read what the FBI agent has said has gone on. Maybe he doesn't know about the wire fraud charges. 501-682-2345. That's 501. I'm sure you can leave a message. 682. Remember, be nice. 2345. 501-682-2345. You're listening to the Paul Harrell program. Back in a minute. Arkansas small businesses are tired of taxes that are too high and regulations that work as obstacles to small business success. If you own a small business, it's time to take action. Now, I'm not talking about the local chambers of commerce. I'm talking about an organization that's actually run by small business owners and are fighting for small businesses right here in the state of Arkansas. They're called Conduit for Action, and they're on your side. Conduit for Action is here not to get something from the government, but to be left alone by the government. Think of them as your personal advocate for limited government at the Capitol in Little Rock. If you're tired of all the politicians talking with no results and ready for action, start outsourcing your government affair needs with Conduit for Action. Go now to conduitforaction.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforaction.org and stand up for small business in Arkansas. Do you need to advertise your business product or service, but not sure what the best choice is? Folks, allow me to introduce you to talk radio. You're listening to it right now. Talk radio is one of the most unique mediums in all of advertising because it actually works. It gets the information you want to the people you want to get it to. And by the way, those people are educated, well-informed decision makers of their household, and most of them have disposable income. If this is a target audience for your business, then you have to consider advertising on my show, The Paul Harrell Program. We have options for most any budget and can provide you with exciting opportunities to grow your business. We can put your message across the state, or we can help you locally. Call 870-275-9755 if you have any questions. That's 870-275-9755, or visit my website, paulharrell.com, and click on Advertise.
This is Mother Government. My people. The promised revenue gathering to fund my motherly goals, such as the Arkansas Works Obamacare private option, has commenced. I have asked my representatives and senators to execute my will concerning new revenues from the tires you use to drive on my roads, the candy and sodas you consume and purchase in my stores, and the digital products you download on my internet. Your sacrifices and tributes, which are owed, display a measure of obedience, but there are still collectible sacrifices I require from the people to increase the work and size of our great government of Arkansas. There are two matters left unresolved. 1. I require a general tribute for all purchases made on my internet. Not just digital products, but all products. My dear children, there are those who would thwart my motherly goals of progress. If you see them, please combat their misguided notions of freedom by using phrases like mom and pop, and tax cheat. 2. I still require more revenue sacrifices concerning your consumption of my gasoline. I require your undying loyalty on the subject. Subjects, in conclusion. More revenue is good. Static revenue is bad. This message was brought to you by your stewards, aristocrats serving Arkansas. Thank you, my children, in advance for your required and expected obedience that keeps society safe and prosperous. And always remember, from cradle to grave.
PHP Parody.
The Declaration will be a triumph. I tell you, a triumph. If I was ever sure of anything, I'm sure of that. A triumph. And if it isn't, we've still got 4 days left to think of something else.
We got some text messages here. Kevin in Craighead County. Asa wants Republicans in office who say I'm conservative but really aren't. We have another caller. I just called Governor Hutchinson's office to get him to demand his resignation. That's good if you want to do that. We're talking about trying to get Asa Hutchinson to ask for Jake Files' resignation. The number there, 501-682-2345. I honestly, I never thought I would say this about the Democrat Party, but in terms of comparing apples to apples, comparing a prominent senator that's caught in something and asking them to resign, apples to apples comparison, the Democrat Party and Mike Beebe have more integrity than Asa Hutchinson and the Arkansas GOP, and that's shameful. I am told that there are members of the Arkansas General Assembly who are disgusted, who are infuriated with Jake Files not resigning yet, but they won't say so publicly. To those of you, I feel sorry for you. If you're not going to stand up to the governor when this is now you. This is now you. You are a Republican. He is a Republican. The party of fiscal conservatism, the party of social conservatism, the party of, in many cases, morality, the party that is in the middle of the Bible Belt will not call for a man to resign who's accused of directly stealing from the taxpayer in the most Mickey Mouse way you could possibly do it. Shame does not begin to explain this. The Arkansas GOP is now, by not calling for Jake Files' resignation, they are now casting a negative light on everybody, on the whole state, but specifically the real conservatives in the GOP who are not in the leadership, and the moderates who are more socially conservative, but maybe not on economic issues. This is what worshiping the R at the end of Governor Hutchinson's name will get you. Now you're ensnared in this. Now you're welcome to come out and distance yourself from it. You're welcome to come out and do what I'm doing and call on Asa Hutchinson to do the right thing and call for Jake Files' resignation. Call on the Arkansas GOP to call for his resignation, to distance themselves. There is a very short window to do it, and they want to run the clock out. If they run the clock out, they will avoid a special election, thereby ensuring a more hand-picked, more intellectual Republican to be able to walk in, and that's what they want. Jake Files was a yes man. Jake Files was controlled. They want another person who is controlled. They want somebody who is okay with the status quo, who will continue the status quo, who will protect the status quo. That is what they want. And, folks, I don't know who's going to stop them. There are people who disagree that won't speak up. There are people within the Arkansas GOP who disagree but will not speak up. Folks, this is embarrassing. Come on. Snap back to reality, as Marshall Mathers says. Back in a minute.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Yes, you've got leftist organizations that raises money. They will put out Craigslist ad offering anywhere $15 to $30 an hour. I've seen pay these people to get on a bus, come up to your hometown, and tear things up.
Mm-hmm. That's incredible. I mean, it's obviously it's happening all across the country, but this is just how charged things were. I mean, you think most of these people were coming from Little Rock, or where were they coming from?
Well, I know from the people who was arrested was from Hot Springs and Little Rock, but they all didn't come from Hot Springs and Little Rock. They probably come from Shreveport. I heard rumor that someone was coming up from Baton Rouge, Black Panthers, and BLM from New Orleans.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm glad that everything was okay in terms of, the officer doing what he did, and that it wasn't, a spectacle the way it was in Charlottesville. Now, I want to talk about, the way the media mischaracterized this. I mean, they were calling this Hot Springs rally this weekend a Confederate rally, which, of course, that goes out to the AP, and you have people in Shreveport and Little Rock that are going to read that, and, it gets characterized as a Confederate rally. You guys are just there saying, hey, look, we first of all, you're there exercising your First Amendment right to peaceably assemble. You have the permit, but you guys are just there saying, hey, this is our history, this is heritage, like, look, we shouldn't mess with the statue, this is ridiculous, don't try to sanitize history. And yet, they want to lump what you guys are doing in with the racists and the neo-Nazis, that what happened in Charlottesville. So comment on that and talk about, because I know that you and your group, you were actually in Charlottesville, correct? Tell us about that.
Yes. Well, first, there were some internet blogger. He basically chases wrecks. His news outlet's 911 something. Okay, I don't really know the name of it. He put out everywhere, contacted every media outlet, and said there was a Ku Klux Klan rally, which actually false. He knows it was not a Ku Klux Klan rally. He knows we're not white supremacists. So that's where it blowed up right there. And yes, once it got out in the media, that's what happened. That's what brought all the factions. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's what brought all the factions to Hot Springs, and they said they were going to turn it, Hot Springs, into another Charlottesville.
Unbelievable. I'm really glad that it didn't. So you put out a video to correct what the media was mischaracterizing with Hot Springs,
yes.
And you said, yes, we were at Charlottesville, but we never went in Lee Park when the white supremacist KKK neo-Nazis were there, because you guys disagree with that kind of discrimination, right? I mean, you guys are not racists.
That's right. We never entered Lee Park. We never was a part of the white nationalist or the white supremacist speaking event in Lee Park. We stayed in the street. We was there in Charlottesville. We seen a lot of bad things go on. Matter of fact, we got caught up in the middle of it, and we got several guys injured, out of our group. But no, we wasn't playing along with the white supremacists.
So I want to hear what happened next. But first, I want to say this. So Donald Trump, he took a ton of criticism in his second press conference when he said not everybody in Charlottesville was a neo.
Birth of a new nation. Only we can be sure of what kind of a bird it's going to be. Tom has a point. What sort of bird shall we choose as the symbol of our new America?
The eagle. The dove.
The turkey.
The eagle.
The dove.
The eagle.
The eagle. The turkey.
The eagle is a majestic bird.
The eagle is a scavenger, a thief, and a coward. A symbol of over 10 centuries of European mischief.
The turkey.
The turkey is a truly noble bird. Native American, source of sustenance of our original settlers. An incredibly brave fellow who will not flinch at attacking a regiment of Englishmen, single-handedly. Therefore, the national bird of America is going to be...
The eagle.
The eagle.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. I want to welcome Back we have the chairman of the Baxter County Republican Party with us. Mr. Richard Castor is back with us, host of The View from Hillsdale. You can be heard on KJMT 97.1 Mountain Talk. Richard, welcome back, sir.
Paul Harrell, wonderful to be here. Thank you so much.
I'm glad that we could have you back. Hey, I know we got a lot to discuss, but I'm pretty I don't know if you're familiar with what's happened with Jake Files, but I'm ready for him to resign. I think he should resign, and right now he's not resigning so that they don't have to call a special election, and they're gonna anyway. It's just a complete mess right now, and I didn't know if you've been following any of this.
Well, it's the one time the establishment has cared about having a special election. I think that's one for the record books. But more than that, I think what Jake Files has represented is everything that we fear about government. Every reason why we want government to be smaller. Every reason why we tell our kids, don't rely on the government. They're full of these bureaucrats who only benefit themselves. Everything he did and everything in that FBI report just tells us and proves that this man was in it for himself, that he had no respect for the rule of law, no shame, even of the dignity that he held as a holder of public office. He should absolutely resign. The Republican Party, the state chairman, my good friend Doyle Webb, should call for his resignation. The governor should call for his resignation, and the people of his district should stand up and boot him out. He is a blemish on the Republican Party of Arkansas, and he should step down, absolutely.
Yeah, I do think he will, but I think it's going to happen when there will be no possibility for a special election, and I just feel like that kind of political gamesmanship manipulation is not good for the image of the party, and it's just not good for people's faith in government, period. And, when I say something like that, I mean, people just assume worse motives. I get that. I know I do that, but, I mean, from that's actually, I really mean that. I mean everything I say, but I wish people would say, you know what, if with Governor Beebe and Paul Bookout resigned, Governor Beebe and the Democrat Party, they did that. They knew it could likely go to a Republican, and it did. And so, sometimes you just got to do the right thing, and if that means you might take a loss and your guy doesn't get in then that's just what you have to do. I mean, it's just the way politics goes.
Absolutely, and I think with his district, I'd be shocked if a Democrat won it. But at the end of the day, it's state and country first, it's principles first, and party second. And if it hurts the party, then you know what? We fight harder the next time they're for election. But at the end of the day, principles first. That's what we proclaim as the Republican Party, that we are the party with these grounded and beautiful ideas and principles and history. Right, that's who we are as a party, and what he did violates all of that. And so who has what letter at the end of their name after this all falls down shouldn't matter to us right now.
Yeah.
What matters is abiding by those principles that we proclaim as a party. That should be the only thing we are concerned about.
Richard Cass, you're always a voice of reason, and that's one of the reasons I love having you on. So tell me a little bit about, did you watch or did you read anything about Donald Trump's speech last night in Phoenix, Arizona? I thought it was one of his best. He came out and really just exposes all of these people in the media, all these political advisors saying you shouldn't name names, which he didn't, but then he made fun of the fact that they told him not to name names like John McCain or Jeff Flake. I mean, he makes these people that think of themselves as being so serious, and he exposes that, hey, these guys really aren't calling the shots. They're really not as serious as they think they are. I thought it was a great speech. Did you watch it?
Absolutely, I did. My wife got mad at me because I wouldn't get off the couch because I had to finish the speech. It was absolutely wonderful. You're correct. I think what Trump does best is he fights absurdity with absurdity, and what the media doesn't get, and what all these talking heads in D.C. don't get, is that we see them as absurd. And so when Donald Trump gets on stage and he starts doing all these grandiose things that they think is just so below the office of the presidency, what we're actually seeing is him fighting their battles on their playing field. right? He's not disgracing the office of the presidency. He's acting as a candidate who ran for president, who won, who is technically running again for re-election, and who is fighting this media and these bureaucrats who are going to say and do whatever they want to get this man out of office. Because what we're seeing now in America at this moment of our history is we're seeing the establishment class, whatever you want to call them, the establishment, the deep state, the bureaucrats, the media, they have chosen to say that they know better than the American people. They're trying to nullify our election for president.
Yes, they are.
They would have much rather have had anyone, any other establishment Republican, any other establishment Democrat be in that office than President Trump. And because he won, because the people's voice actually mattered in this election, they're throwing the kitchen sink at the guy. And now we finally have a candidate, a man, a president, who can stand up to that, who somehow it doesn't affect, right? His poll numbers are going to go up and down. That's fine. Who cares? But at the end of the day, he's fighting for us in a way that I don't think we have ever seen a politician do. I really don't. And I don't think any of the other 16 candidates that ran against them in the Republican primary, I don't think any of them could have withstood the pressure that Trump is withstanding right now. And it's an incredible thing to see. And we saw it with a spotlight on it last night in Arizona.
Yeah, we really did.
Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it was, and he just refuses to, they want to set the parameters of the argument, or, they want to set the arena, and he just says, no, I'm not going to dance to the beat that I'm not going to dance to your song, I'm going to dance to my own beat, and that's what drives them nuts, and they still haven't figured out how to do it yet. I mean, if you watch CNN after that speech, they felt so offended. I mean, it really is personal with them. They felt so offended that they have to feel the need to assure their viewers that everything you heard him say was a lie. And now they're talking about he's mentally unstable and everything else. It's like, did you see him? So much of what he said was tongue-in-cheek, and he was, and yet they try to say he's mentally unstable. I mean, come on. It was ridiculous.
Right. Well, and then we have Clapper, who is the former head of the NSA or whatever, big security official who served from Reagan all the way to Obama.
Who lied to Congress. He lied to Congress, by the way. Go ahead.
Exactly my point. This is a man who today said it's dangerous having Donald Trump being president. I don't even think Donald Trump wants to be president, and I can't sleep at night knowing that he has his hand on the nuclear code. But this comes from a man who lied under oath to Congress about the federal government listening in on private citizens' phone calls, emails, text messages, the whole Edward Snowden scandal that we know is true, everything that the government is doing that's unconstitutional, this man lied about. And he's saying he can't sleep at night because of Donald Trump. I mean, we are so far in the world of absurdity that it takes a man with a personality, even though it may make us uncomfortable, right? It takes a man with the personality of Donald Trump to fight back against these monsters who will lie, cheat, and steal and do whatever it takes to get him out of office. God bless him.
Do you think there's an element, and this is kind of backtracking a little bit, but do you think there's an element, you mentioned that the media and everybody else, they're trying to nullify the election that we had for Donald Trump. Do you kind of feel like, back to the Jake Files thing, if we're not going to have a special election, if they're trying to stall it, he's going to resign, but it'll be impossible to have a special election and for Fort Smith to have a senator for the fiscal session. Do you feel like it's because they're maybe a little worried that a Donald Trump election isn't a good bellwether for them in the next cycle? When you look at, we're in Arkansas, people are more conservative, they're tired of career politicians and things like that.
It could be, Paul. I tell you, I have not been a part of any of those conversations, but I will say what I've learned over this past few years is that never underestimate how calculated and scheming these politicians and people who work in politics can be. They will go to great lengths to secure their own power. And, some of them are my friends, some of them are my colleagues, but when you start giving people a taste of power and a taste of prestige and of job security, people will fight like heck to secure those things. And so I would just say again, the people of that district, stand up and, claim it for your own, because That's not Files' seat, right? That's their seat. That's the people's seat. It's not the Republican Party of Arkansas seat. It's not the governor's seat. That is their seat. That is their representative, and they need to take ownership of it.
So let's talk a little bit before we go, Richard Castor, about race relations, where they are today. And I didn't know if, at your time at Hillsdale, or really, I mean, do you have any solutions for us today? Can we look to, the country's founding, the Constitution? Obviously, I think we can, to kind of redirect the debate right now. What's going on in this country?
I think one of the greatest problems that we have right now with race relations in America is that we stopped teaching our heritage to our youth in public school. Right? We stopped teaching about the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, what those great wars were about, what those ideas were about. And we have the answers to all of these questions written in our founding documents and within the thinkers who inspired that. And so, we could go on for a half hour about this, but what I will say is that Thomas Jefferson, when he wrote that every man has a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that he's endowed by their creator with those things, he was echoing about 2,000 or 3,000 years of philosophy there that recognized the human as something special. And we can go all the way back to Aristotle, who taught us that humans are created by God with a unique dignity. And with that dignity comes a proper role of government that should govern them. And Thomas Aquinas took those thoughts even farther. They went on to Dante and John Locke, and finally back to our founding fathers, who taught us that because we are human, we are given certain respect and certain dignity, and that no government, no man, no legislature, no king or queen can take away that dignity from you. Whether you're a Jew in the camps of Hitler, or you're an African-American under slavery in America back in the day, or now, no matter who you are and what you are feeling, no government, no man, no legislature can take away your personal dignity. You are given that. That's inherent, right? And so if we come as a nation to an understanding of that all humans are equal in that dignity and in that respect, then all these race questions go away, because we recognize in each other our common humanity, and that it's enshrined in law and protected by the government as it should be. That's the system our founders gave us. And so we have to come back to that understanding as a people. We have to know it. We have to believe it.
Yeah.
Because to be a good Christian, you have to understand first what it means to be a good human as a creature and a child of God. And that common humanity is so important that we recognize that in each other and we teach that to our children. So all these questions, they've been answered. They've been answered by our founders.
And
while they weren't perfect,
go
absolutely,
ahead.
They weren't perfect. Their history is not perfect, right? When we talk about these statues and certain things they may have done or not, but their heritage, the things that we have chosen as future generations to bring with us into the future, that heritage is what we hold on to and what we love and what secures the type of government we live under, this great republic.
And so
we got to get back to that understanding.
We're talking with Richard Castor, and so my fear is, and the danger is, and feel free to comment on this, is you've got Antifa, and you have people who would consider themselves politically moderate. Maybe they're on the fence. They might take a side on a right issue or on a left issue. But I feel like on this issue with Antifa and Charlottesville, I'm reading all these people that have to figure out that they now have to somehow, being against racism now is you're on a high horse. To me, at this point in the 21st century, it's the baseline of what it normal is not being a bigot. I mean, that's what normal is. Where people are trying to think that it's something that is now mainstream, and it's not mainstream. And you have these people now who are, in my opinion, they're now trying to appease a grievance, which, when it comes to offense, I can totally understand that there might be somebody who's offended by the statue. I get that. I don't believe they should be taken down. But then they are not reporting on the fact that that appeasement will likely have no effect on satisfying them. So whether you separate Robert E. Lee and Martin Luther King Day like we did here in Arkansas, or now we have calls to remove the Confederate star on the Arkansas flag, or remove the Confederate monuments down at the Marble Palace, or we now know getting rid of George Washington. So the danger in the context of all of this is that we have a failure with some people who consider themselves moderates to identify we're facing people that have an issue with the very existence of America. Those ideals that you just listed, they have not been educated, yes, but they're ignorant of those. And so my fear is if we lose it, you mentioned some of these great philosophers. I don't want my newborn daughter to be confined to a society where they don't know about these things, where they're having to reinvent the wheel of freedom. And if you ever get to the point where you got to reinvent the wheel of freedom, and that's a new thing, you're probably living in a totalitarian environment, and that's very frightening to me. Richard, go ahead.
Absolutely. Well, Calvin Coolidge in the 1920s, when he was fighting the peak of the progressive movement under Woodrow Wilson, he said, these ideas that the left is pushing, they're not new, right? They're ancient. The new ideas are those ideas of the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, an idea that we're all equal. That's new. And anything that goes against those ideas are ancient. They're old. They've been tried, and they will lead you exactly what you just said, Paul, back to a time of totalitarianism, a time where we're not free, we're not equal. That's what we're fighting against. And so what I'll say with this Antifa and everything that happened in Charlottesville, this was the culmination of everything the left has been pushing for the past few decades, which is a social justice mantra of you are a victim. If you're a millennial, you're a victim for this reason. If you're African American, you're a victim for this reason. If you're a homosexual, you're a victim for this reason. No matter who you are, they'll fit you in a box and tell you you're a victim. So, of course, when 200 idiots, white supremacists, show up in a park somewhere, that answers the question, well, I'm a victim. I'm a victim to who? Well, if there's a couple of hundred in this park, there must be millions, and that's who I'm a victim to. When in reality, those idiots, they hold no power. They hold no political power, no sphere of influence. They shouldn't exist. They do. Evil exists. We've been saying that for years. But they're not the reason why you feel like you're a victim, right? You feel like you're a victim because you've been told that by the political establishment for so many years, and that you need the government to help you. When conservatives, our answer to that is no, you have that power as an individual inside of yourself, and we're going to get the government out of the way to unleash your potential. And so we have to get back to those arguments, understanding that we are the party and the people, and we have the arguments that say we believe in every single individual, that we all have equal opportunity, and that no one is a victim to anyone else in this society. And if someone tries to commit an injustice, we're going to be there to call them out on it. But to say that a couple of hundred idiots who showed up in that park have somehow taken control of this country is absurd, and it does nothing but benefit the left in their arguments to take down Trump to say that sort of thing. So don't give these people more credit than what's due to them, which is zero to nothing. I think we just keep to our principles, and this will all play out, I think, for the better for America. And then
Richard Castor, host of The View from Hillsdale and the chairman of the Baxter County Republicans. Appreciate it, sir. It's always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day, folks. The Liberty Machine. We got to roll on. Got to go to break. Back in just a moment.
Do you need conservative legislation killed?
Or do you need policies enacted that ensure government growth?
Then you need to get
Nephewed. Hi, I'm nephew number 1 of uncle, nephew, and nephew, attorneys at law. I'm not a lawyer, but I am a senator.
And I'm nephew number 2, and I am a lawyer and also a senator.
Are you the victim of a recent accident in which the voters in your community mistakenly elected a limited government conservative who is now actually implementing the ideas he or she campaigned on?
That's right, nephew number 1. Don't be a victim of democratic elections any longer. At Uncle, Nephew, and Nephew, we are committed to killing limited government legislation and promoting bills that increase the size of government by using any tool at our disposal.
Because sometimes the truth of the matter is, principles get in the way of pragmatism.
Just listen to some of our great testimonials.
Ever since I've been using the nephews, all my special interests have been served. As long as you make sure your contract says lobbying services are prohibited, then the legal services of uncle, nephew, and nephew are legal. Trust me, put the nephews on them.
It came out of nowhere. I was blindsided last election cycle when my well-funded and paid-for politician lost to some grassroots limited government voters. But then I hired the nephews, and they killed all the conservative policies the voters wanted. I got nephewed.
I got nephewed too, and so can you. Uncle, nephew, and nephew will accept compensation via campaign contributions. Put the nephews on them.
PHP Parody. If you would like information about advertising or supporting the Paul Harrell Program and Conduit Media Group, call 870-275-9755. Join the fight against big government and advance the preservation of liberty by calling 870-275-9755. The Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
I will say this about Mr. Richard Castor, who is the chairman of the Baxter County Republicans, who is just on here. Folks, is it not so refreshing to hear an actual Republican that believes in the platform, that's not ashamed, like you said, to call on Asa Hutchinson and call on Doyle Webb like he did at the beginning to say, look, Jake Files, this guy needs to resign. I mean, it's been 8 months of this stuff. 8 months of trickle. You know, we need, all of the terrible news that's come out about him. This guy is the chair. He is a leader in the Republican Party. He is the chair of the Revenue and Taxation Committee, and he doesn't even pay his own taxes with the IRS. He's got liens filed against him. He's got lawsuits. He's in the city of Fort Smith has a lawsuit. You have Western Bank of Arkansas involved in a lawsuit. Jake Files pled the fifth in a deposition last month. Now we have the FBI affidavit. And folks, I mean, I'm to the point now where when you go, Jake Files' statement of defense was so weird to me that he even responded. And you know what he did? He still denied it. There are quotes from the prosecuting attorney saying that there are no charges right now against Jake Files. And now, if there were charges filed, you would think he obviously would step down, right? And I believe, and you heard what Richard said, these people will scheme any way they can to retain their power, to acquire that power. Who knows? A phone call here, a phone call there, using your connections in Washington to say, maybe we're not going to file the charges just yet. Maybe we'll wait until now. That is a huge accusation, because that kind of accusation would mean the justice system in this context is, playing politics, which is completely wrong. But I put nothing past these people. Paul, it's just an Arkansas Senate seat. Yeah, we're talking about potentially billions of dollars coming into this state. When you just think of just one little program like Obamacare, talking about a lot of people's wallets getting thicker or lighter depending on if a true conservative occupies that seat that's willing to go against the status quo, that's not loyal just because you have an R at the end of your name and you're the governor. A lot of money's at stake. We're going to continue reporting the Arkansas news, giving you the facts, giving you the truth that people don't want you to know. They want you to think that every Republican in Arkansas leadership is the next Ronald Reagan. And that ain't so, folks. That ain't so. Back in just a minute.
Rush, Glenn, Sean, and Paul. This is Jonesboro's 1013 FM News Talk, KBTM.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Nazi white supremacist KKK member, and you are essentially confirming that. And the media, of course, they wanted to say everybody in Charlottesville was KKK. I mean, was white supremacist. This kind of really, it inflates the number of people that they can then say, well, look, our country, 50% of people are racist and 50% of the people aren't. And, they want us to think that this thing is a powder keg about to explode, because most of Americans are just enjoying their freedom, trying to work, trying to put food on the table, and living their life. And so, that's the narrative that they're trying to put out there. So tell us, though, because there's some reports, even from Black Lives Matter. The Daily Caller had a quote from somebody from the Black Lives Matter movement saying the police at Charlottesville abandoned the situation. Some people say that the people in Lee Park, which I know you weren't in, were funneled towards the Black Lives Matter people. What can you tell us? What went on the ground?
Well, Paul, I'll tell you what we witnessed when we was there. We showed up on the east side of Lee Park out in the street. Okay, they were an angry mob of 700 to 1,000 right there at the south side of Lee Park, and that is where the entrance was to where the Unite the Right event was taking place. Lee Park sits up on top of a little knoll, a set of steps going up to it. Okay, we were there at the bottom in the street. We was watching this take place. We had riot police come in from behind us. Okay, they were some tear gas chunked back and forth in the crowd of that 1,000 angry mob. We did not want to go through that angry mob. We were forced through that angry mob by police. Well, we got 3 people injured. We got 2 guys with skull fractures. 1 guy with some broke ribs, and some other minor injuries to other people, All right, we got on the other side, over on the west side of Lee Park. After we went through that angry mob, I gathered everybody up. The leader of the 1st Tennessee Rifles gathered his guys up, which was with us. And we seen the riot police up in Lee Park. Instead of pushing the white supremacists out the north side where the angry mob wasn't gathered, they pushed them out the south side with riot shields and stuff, right into that angry mob of about 1,000 Antifa and BLM. And that's when, it was just a riot. These guys were coming out. They were barricaded. They didn't have no choice but to come out there. And they were coming right down in this. One black guy had a aerosol can with a cigarette lighter, using it as a flamethrower. The people coming down the steps, they were spraying pepper spray, throwing bricks, throwing rocks, had clubs, and they were just beating everybody that the cops was pushing out of Lee Park. So, yes, the police caused the violence by their actions and how they initiated pushing people out. And they were cops right behind where I was standing. Matter of fact, I was standing right there with the InfoWars reporter. And these cops was behind the barricade, sitting there watching all that take place. Had a street barricaded off. Just sitting there watching it all take place. White nationalists was coming out with gashes in their heads, blood all over them.
So, do you think? Yeah. You think you think the president of the United States saw those images? And that's why.
I know he did.
Yeah, that's why he came out and said, first of all, he made a kind of a general statement because he didn't have all the facts. And then, I guess my point is, you were there on the ground, and gosh, Billy, you are describing what to me is a pretty terrifying situation.
It was bad.
I would never want to be in that position or that situation. But, I guess I'm just saying the media, and our listeners can decide for themselves, but the media is so misrepresenting not just this event, but tons of events, but event like this. And now we have, and this is what contributed to those people showing up in Arkansas, charging at you guys and trying to recreate what happened in Charlottesville. And I'm just thankful that our law enforcement in Arkansas, Hot Springs, and I know you guys work with, the national park individuals as well. They were determined to not let something like that happen again.
Oh, yeah. When we talked to Hot Springs PD, talked to the police chief, Arkansas State Police, the Garvin County Sheriff's Office, and the Parks Police, the police chief of Hot Springs got up on the desk and said, this is not going to be another Charlottesville. This is not happening here. And he guaranteed me it was not going to happen. That they would protect us. And they did.
So last question, and we've been talking with Billy Sessions. I appreciate it. What do you think when it comes to them trying to remove the statues? Do you let's say that all the statues were removed. Do you think the left would be satisfied? Do you think?
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hey, folks, welcome. It is hour number 2. Thank you so much for being with us. My name is Paul. We had a great first hour. If you missed it, the podcast is up. And it'll be available on our Facebook Live page over at paulharrell.com as well, YouTube, you name it, so you can catch up. We had a great interview with Richard Castor, and so that was really good. I want to welcome back to the program. We've got Fort Smith attorney, Mr. Joey McCutcheon is back with us. Joey, thanks for being on the program.
Hey, Paul, good to be back. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Hey, can I get your comments on Senator Jake Files? I mean, this is ridiculous. I've been calling. I know I want to talk about FOIA, but I've been calling for his resignation for the last several months, and Governor Hutchinson as well as the Arkansas GOP are not calling for his resignation. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts is that Senator Files needs to resign. And I say that for a couple of reasons. Some of them are very obvious. The first problem that I have is that Senator Files is my senator, and he will not meet with me to discuss what's going on here, because I think he owes us answers. In all transparency, and that's part of the discussion we're going to have today, he owes us honesty and openness, and he will not discuss with me. For example, one of the things I want to discuss with him, Paul, it's not just the gift money, the $25,000 gift money that apparently went to his personal use, but I want to talk to him about the $80,000 that he received from David Norsworthy, who is a nursing home lobbyist in Little Rock, about 5 days after the nursing home lobby had a bill filed that would put a price tag on human life of $500,000. Is that a gift? Is that a loan? Because we know that Senator Files took another $30,000 loan about 6 months or so, or a year before that, from Bruce Hawkins, a $30,000. He called it a loan.
Yeah.
The perception is that that's a bribe. And that's serious. And so I think that the GOP needs to call on Senator Files to resign. I think it gives a bad name to to other representatives, other senators. I think representatives need to call on him.
Absolutely.
Do the right thing and call on him to resign.
Absolutely. I'm so glad to hear you say that. My fear is, though, this is being orchestrated. Because, see, I have sources, and my sources tell me that Jake Files is going to resign, but he's going to do it when there will be no special election, so that State Representative Matt Pitch will still be able to run for that seat in 2018. Now, the issue with that is the fact that we've got a fiscal session that's coming up next year. And if he resigns, essentially the people of District 8, your people, the district that you're with, Joey, you guys are going to have no representation. And even if he doesn't resign, he doesn't need to be down there voting at this point. I mean, the amount of political leverage with his debts, the liens, the lawsuits, the $80,000 loan, the $30,000 loan, taking the $25,000 for personal use. I mean, this guy doesn't need to be voting on behalf of anybody.
No, and I've given Senator Files the benefit of the doubt for a long time, but it's past that now. You know, just the lack of sincerity of his most recent post, where he states that, oh, this is old news. Well, it may be old news, but it's disgusting news. And you know, I think leadership requires that. I think Representative Matt Pitch ought to call for his resignation.
Yeah.
You know, Representative Pitch was recruiting candidates, and Representative Pitch announced for that Senate seat before the public even knew that Senator Files was not running again. So there's some insider ball play in there.
Yeah.
And so let's just do the right thing. But he's ineffective. He's a lame duck, and the people in my Senate district have no representation at this point because he's been told by his lawyers in a civil suit last week. I've read the deposition. His lawyer, Gunnar DeLay, who is the Republican county chairman, told him to take the Fifth.
Yeah, why do you think that? Why do you think he in a civil case took the Fifth Amendment?
Because he knew he was going to get asked questions that would incriminate him, and is my guess. But I think that in alone is very revealing that he's taken the Fifth Amendment in a civil suit.
It's really strange. Very, very strange. We're talking with Joey McCutcheon. He's an attorney in Fort Smith. And, you know, with all the Jake Files fallout, you know, Joey here is a Freedom of Information Act defender and buff, and he's always you know, you're advocating for transparency, and I really appreciate that. And I hear that you've now got another suit with the city of Fort Smith. Is this the second one? And tell us more about this. It has to do with emails, right?
Yeah, you know, we had a transparency suit against the Fort Smith School Board, which Judge Tabor in early June 13th, granted a summary judgment in our favor, stating that the secret emails that the school board was in which they elected their slate of officers was a violation of FOIA. And then shortly after that, I find that the city, I actually FOIA'd other documents, and I found a series of documents on this issue involving the Civil Service Commission in Fort Smith, in which our city board of directors did exactly the same thing. They're discussing public business that's likely to come before the city board on a private email chain, on a secret email chain, and in my opinion, a clear violation of FOIA, just like Judge Tabor found in the last case. To save the taxpayers' money, I sent them a settlement agreement, and I gave them time. Their lawyer called, wanted additional time. I gave them the additional time. But in the meantime, I was like, I wonder if they're discussing this settlement agreement through secret email. So I FOIA the document. Lo and behold, the exact same thing occurred. And in fact, one of the emails reads, Director Law said, so to all other than Carl, he's the city administrator, close your eyes, and to Carl, I do not want to settle or admit guilt. I mean, he's telling, in effect, he knows he's violating FOIA, so he's telling the other city directors to close their eyes. Wow. And then we have another city director in his vote, Mike Lorenz. He says, I'm simply providing my opinion in this matter, so feel free to stop reading at this point and delete this email if you do not want to see my opinion. I mean, that's just thumbing your nose at the Freedom of Information Act. Now, they both go on to say that they're tired of Joey McCutcheon and they don't want to be my advertising firm. I don't want them to be my advertising firm either. I just want them to do their business in board meetings and not in secret emails.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, and yet I bet there are, I know there are city officials listening to this program right now all across the state that probably are thinking to themselves, uh-oh, I bet this is happening everywhere, Joey.
It is. I'm certain that it's happening across the state. I just think that there's no accountability, and which brings us to another point: what happened in the Republican legislature? I mean, Winthrop Rockefeller, who was the Republican government in a Democratic legislature in 1967, passed the FOIA law, and we had a group of Republicans in this last legislative session who wanted to turn our FOIA law, gut it from the strongest in the country, which would, in one fell swoop, which would have made it the weakest in the country, due to an exception whereby they would create a attorney privilege exception. What would have happened is they would have included their lawyer in a CC, and they would have claimed attorney-client privilege, and we would never get documents. We would never get documents again, Paul.
I know.
And it's scary. It's scary what's happening in a Republican legislature. I mean, I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative, and I just don't get it. You know, that's the only way. That's one of the ways that we hold government accountable.
Mm-hmm.
The other way is the right to trial by jury, as you know I'm also passionate about.
Absolutely.
And not only do they want to gut FOIA, which holds politicians and government accountable, they want to gut our Constitution, our right to trial by jury also. And I just don't get it. I mean, we're a party, that's one of our premises, that's one of our foundations as conservatives, is accountability. And we're trying to gut it at every level.
Let me ask you this, Joey, because the Family Council scored that bill, they were against it, and the Republican establishment, they didn't get good scores on the Family Council scorecard. I mean, they are literally, in some cases, dizzy from talking bad about it, talking bad about Family Council Now, which is a socially conservative group, and we have the Senate Majority Leader Jim Hendren now calling, because of that scorecard and others, he's now wanting these organizations to have to disclose their donors, which is really frightening to me. Again, back to this whole transparency thing. Transparency's for government, privacy's for citizens. They don't seem to get this. And I'm wondering, in the context of all of this, if you might give us maybe an update on your suing Ecclesia College, if there's an update on that, because specifically with Jake Files, I mean, this is another example of general improvement funds being such a temptation and really easy for them to enrich themselves on the public's back. And, of course, I feel like the Ecclesia situation with John Woods and Mike and Neal and everything else, that involved general improvement funds, a little bit more clever laundering scheme than what Jake Files was doing. But can you give us an update on anything that's going on with that?
I can, and I'm glad you brought up Family Council. Yeah, Republicans, they understand that Jerry Cox with the Family Council, he is the conscience of the Christian community. And when he gives these legislators a C, for example, when they vote to pass out SJR 8, the tort reform bill, Jerry Cox gave them a C, some of them a C. because Jerry understands that we've got to value life both in the womb. We've got to value the life of a child. We've got to value the life of a stay-at-home mom. We've got to value the life of folks in the nursing home. And so, I mean, I hear that they're threatening Jerry Cox. Oh, we need a new family counsel. Oh, find somebody else to bring your bills. That's just not right.
It's petty.
And,
I thought, yeah, and that you're exactly right. I've heard the same thing, and it's a shame that their principals are, that they were just carrying pro-life bills for accolades and for getting good scores. Now that they haven't gotten good scores because of how they voted, and because of the interest of a private organization just telling the people what their interests are and how people voted, is really shameful, and it really shows that a lot of these people are essentially, they've got thin skin, and it's like high school never ended for some of these people.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I mean, Rose Mims of Arkansas Right to Life, same type of threats, because Rose is against SJR 8, which would put a price tag on the value of human life. On to Ecclesia. I know you want to talk about that. We are in the process of asking the court to set that for a hearing. When you take $700,000 of taxpayer money, a private college, now they've claimed in their pleadings that they're actually a church and not a college, which was beyond me. But we're asking. This is the open records part. They don't want to give us the records. And you got to ask yourself, why are they fighting so hard to keep these records sealed after they take $700,000 of taxpayer money from, again, some of the same conservative senators? For example, Senator Hester, Representative Ballinger, who has announced that he is running against Brian King for state senator. Representative Ballinger is partners with Travis Story, who is defending this lawsuit. Representative Ballinger gave money to Ecclesia. So what are they trying to hide? I mean, all we want is a little transparency. Just show us the document. And
it's because
they don't want to do that.
Yeah, they're saying we're a private school, we don't have to give it, and you're saying no, you took public money, so the public needs to know what you did with it. And now they're saying, well, we're actually a church, and so we're now using religious protections, and then you say, because I know you've argued this, well, if you're a church, then we're in violation of the Arkansas Constitution because we can't give public money to a church.
That's right. And the problem that I have with a lot of these issues is with regard to our Constitution, we can't pick and choose which part of the Constitution we like today, which part of the Constitution we like tomorrow. We have a Constitution, and we have an extremely stout Article 2, which is our Declaration of Rights, which, if you look at the Bill of Rights on the federal level, Arkansas's Bill of Rights in Article 2 is stout. But, again, it's under attack, and there's nothing more important than the Bill of Rights. I mean, we saw folks who understood that when our Constitution was passed, and some of them walked because it did not protect our individual liberties. And Paul, we've got to. It's just like your preamble to your show says. We've got to fight for our liberty because we get incrementalized to death. We lose a right here, we lose a right there. Next thing you know, you turn around, you ain't got no right.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. Joey McCutcheon, Fort Smith attorney, I appreciate it. It's always enlightening to have you on, and I appreciate what you said about Jake Files. He needs to resign. The governor needs to do the right thing here, and if that means he might take a political loss, then fine. Same with the Arkansas GOP. The right thing has to be done, and Joey, I appreciate it, sir. We'll do it again soon.
I appreciate you, and thanks for having me.
All righty. Folks, the Liberty Machine rolls on back in just a moment.
This is State Representative Dan Sullivan with a Liberty Moment. I want the truth of our economic condition to be known and debated. I'm not out to fool people into voting against their own interests. We need to trust people and then give them credit for understanding policies that promote freedom and free markets. We need to remind our constituents of the underpinning principles of our nation's founding document: freedom of worship, freedom to speak up, freedom to assemble, freedom to petition the government, and freedom to report issues.
Paid for by Sullivan for Arkansas.
Arkansas small businesses are tired of taxes that are too high and regulations that work as obstacles to small business success. If you own a small business, it's time to take action. Now, I'm not talking about the local chambers of commerce. I'm talking about an organization that's actually run by small business owners and are fighting for small businesses right here in the state of Arkansas. They're called Conduit for Action, and they're on your side. Conduit for Action is here not to get something from the government, but to be left alone by the government. Think of them as your personal advocate for limited government at the Capitol in Little Rock. If you're tired of all the politicians talking with no results and ready for action, start outsourcing your government affair needs with Conduit for Action. Go now to conduitforaction.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforaction.org, and stand up for small business in Arkansas.
In Arkansas, every single hour there is a politician not getting what they want. For some, it's an absolute nightmare. The sleepless nights wondering if progress will ever come. Lying awake pondering how to grow government in this political climate. Asking questions like, why don't my constituents want to pay a few cents more in taxes? Everyday politicians feel abused and neglected. These politicians are starving for power. They're hungry, confused, and they don't understand why no one seems to care. Will you be a patriot and commit today to help these poor, starved for power public officials? It's simple. All you have to do is commit to stay silent and never dissent or stand in the way of your politicians' rise to power. Never speak up or get engaged to stop the growth of government. By committing to these simple steps, you will ensure the life of your politician will be filled with contentment and the respect they are desperately seeking, as well as campaign contributions from lobbyists.
This message brought to you by Aristocrats Serving Arkansas.
PHP Parody.
Now then, attend, as friend to friend, our declaration committee. For us I see immortality in Philadelphia City.
Hey, real quick, we're kind of up against the hard break here in we got 2 minutes. All right, so check this out. I want to revisit this. Speaking of Jake Files, have you guys ever seen Jake Files' 10,000 square foot mansion? Yes. We've shown it on the program before because we've been following this story for a long time. Jake Files, and it's for sale. Has it been bought yet? I'm sure not. Is it $1.2 million? This is a picture, for those of you watching at paulharrell.com, Facebook Live, YouTube. This is a picture of Jake Files, and this is undisputed, taxpayer-funded mansion. This is a picture of it. Now, it's quite the pretty home. It's got a porte cochere.
I can just imagine Jake Files on the day of building it. Bring me a shrubbery.
Yeah, so you look at the shrubs. We tweeted this earlier. For those of you, this is the aerial photo. Those are Fs. Those are back-to-back Fs. Shrubs that are cut to look like back-to-back Fs. You know, for Files. Real creative. In case anyone's wondering, the aerial photo, though, doesn't really look like Fs. That's all I'm saying. It looks like more like somebody, I don't know, was drawing, I don't know. It looks like somebody was half drawing a swastika. I mean, that's what it looks like, if we're honest about it.
They were doing the swastika, and then they got caught. They're like, oh no, we gotta finish this.
Oh
no, these are just back to back.
We say all this in jest, especially in these sensitive times with the neo-Nazis and everything. But come on, that is That is remarkably. Those don't look like two Fs back to back. But anyway, taxpayer-funded mansion. Being in the Arkansas General Assembly pays well.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
They would all go home?
No, that's just a stepping stone to other things that they want. They're not going to stop with Confederate monuments. They're wanting the road signs. They're even wanting to take down the founding fathers' names on certain streets. They're already starting that. That's just the beginning.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think appeasement in this situation is, I mean, if they are upset with the very foundation of the country, America, as a nation, period, then this is just a step, because the same arguments they make about being triggered or feeling oppressed because of a Confederate general statue, those same arguments can be made for George Washington, a street sign in a bad neighborhood or something like that. I mean, that's a symbol of oppression because of the name of the street. It's just the beginning, and that's why, look, I appreciate you exercising your First Amendment right. I appreciate you being peaceful. I also appreciate that you were willing to come out and say, look, we're not a white supremacist group. The media is misrepresenting this, and that's why I wanted to have you on today, Billy. And certainly,
can I add something?
Yes, sir.
Well, to validate President Trump, when he talked about the night before, okay, the left media spun it, that he was referring to the Tiki Torch March. It's saying that they were good people there the night before at Lee Park. We were there the night before Lee Park. We had people, we were carrying on intelligent debates with people of the community there at Lee Park the night before. We was live streaming. He's seen those live streams. There were other groups there that was not white supremacists that did not take part in Tiki Torch March.
Mm-hmm.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah, so the left's spinning that even more, saying the night before there were good people there, referring to, people who are not white supremacists like you guys versus some other people who were there. And that's what the left can't seem to get their, the media just refuses to report that kind of stuff. Very frustrating. But, hey, there are programs like this, Billy, and I know mediums like what you guys do on Facebook and everything else trying to just get the truth out there, let people make up their own minds, and that's what I want to do.
Well, that's what we try to do, Paul. Well, I work with Patriot Media to give the truth to the people at these events, because you can't depend on the mainstream news to give you the truth. They will spin it. They clip their film. They put what they want to in it. That's the reason I live stream. And also, Paul, before I go, there were about 6 buses in Charlottesville. When we were making our way back to the parking garage, we encountered 6 buses, 4 tour buses, or something like a tour bus, and a couple other smaller buses, and they were drivers standing outside them buses with BLM shirts on.
So that was in Charlottesville.
That's correct.
And so we also had buses in Hot Springs.
As far as I know, yeah, there was some showed up.
Yeah, well, certainly glad they had 2 different results. We had 2 different results, but again, Billy, I appreciate you coming on, sir. It's a great contact to me to make. I'm glad that we were able to meet. If you ever need anything, just let me know, okay?
Okay, thank you, Paul, for having me on.
All righty, yes, sir, folks. We got to go to break. You're listening to the Paul.
The eagle's going to crack the shell of the egg that England laid. Yes, so we can tell on this humid Monday morning in this congressional incubator.
And just as Tom here has written, though the shell may belong to Great Britain, the eagle inside belongs to us.
And just as Tom here has written, we say to hell with Great Britain, the eagle inside belongs to us.
right, here we are, folks. Text message from Crawford County. Rufus asking if Jake Files was somehow connected to Charlottesville. Oh, you know what's funny? Hey, throw this picture back up. Look at this. You see this? You see the photo? This is Jake Files, taxpayer-funded 10,000 square foot home. It's up for sale. This guy has certainly enriched himself off the taxpayers. But take a look. See the shrubbery there? Those are 2 Fs. They kind of, though, looks like somebody really messed up, and they, I don't know, lawn services can be expensive, and when you're, having to steal $26,000 to keep your lifestyle afloat, maybe you don't have time to make it look specifically like 2 Fs, because it kind of looks like a swastika. So, could we... Here's the thing. If you really want Asa to ask him to resign... if you were to speculate that is the case and there were some prejudice tendencies, we got to have him resign immediately because then Walmart would call, and once Walmart would call, it would all be over. No, we're not going to Photoshop it. Anyway, that's just a speculation. I'm just saying, isn't that funny that looks like that? That's funny to me. All right, let's move on now. Speaking of... a lot of people, Joe, you're one of them, because of what happened in Charlottesville, a lot of people got to know who Antifa was for the first time. Now, not me. I knew who they were. We haven't really talked about them. But a lot of people, you're included. What? And you said you found out that, you researched them when I first started talking about them and immediately came to the conclusion that
they're hypocrites.
They're hypocrites because they're actually fascists.
Yeah, they call them. Their Antifa stands for anti-fascist, but they very much stand for fascist policy.
Exactly. I found this on Facebook, and I want you to see this because this guy right here. So, I just want you to know some of these people will not be reasoned with, and the only hope is that law and order takes hold, because these people believe violence is a good thing, and they believe in just completely destroying our society based on if you're offended by it. I want you to listen to this. This is a Facebook page called Boston Antifa, or Boston Antifa, and they have a huge problem. No, it's not. Yeah, these people have a huge problem. Sorry, Joe was asking me a question. Listen to this guy. I had to bleep out some of the cuss words. Here we go. Listen to this.
So, Cracker Barrel, thanks for getting back to us with our messages and our tweets. Of course that didn't happen, did it? So, you probably also remember me from a video I sent you about 3 weeks ago.
No, they don't.
Which you failed to respond to as well.
It's a sad thing here, isn't it?
Of course, I'm sure you do remember me.
No, they haven't responded. And they
blame this on yourself, honestly.
Cracker Barrel.
Blame this on the fact that you're too cowardly to have any kind of response to somebody calling you out on your
So, Cracker Barrel, this is
I
about...
have to take this to...
Stop. Antifa has a problem with Cracker Barrel. Joe.
It seems to me he's treating this like a girl he likes but won't respond to him because he's actually crazy.
So it's good. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
Now, at first I was like, oh, are they coming after Cracker Barrel because it's, Cracker Barrel, like, come on, Cracker? Like, that kind of, like, Cracker Barrel. That's not why. I thought that was the simplest explanation. I was like, okay, what are the people who play the race card everywhere?
Paul, you should know it's never simple with these people.
Okay. All right. So listen up. It actually is something much more ridiculous. Listen to his explanation for why Cracker Barrel is racist.
A public level now. Too many people have been asking us lately about what's the deal with the racist undertones involving your restaurant.
Cracker Barrel.
And so let's start with the rocking chairs, because that seems to be on everybody's mind lately.
Oh, that's on everyone's mind.
The rocking chair kind of invokes this period of time, right? It's you have just your farmhand whittling wood in the evenings, sitting in front of his plantation house. It's kind of this whitewashed Norman Rockwell-esque kind of image you're supposed to get out of it, when in fact it was always just some racist farmhand or farm owner who was doing this while slaves were chained in their bunkhouse.
Politically correct
and that's
furniture.
Really just kind of a little bit of what Cracker Barrel represents.
Just a little bit.
To people who actually remember this kind of...
Politically incorrect.
It goes way worse than that. When you go inside, you get all this different retro stuff that you can buy.
Retro.
And
That's
they
what
have
it
all
is.
this antique just hanging up on the walls, and it's supposed to get you to this period of time in your mind of the late 1800s to the early 1900s. And what I find really up, honestly, is that you have all these people of color, especially, and they're working the wait staff, and they're, taking orders and refilling drinks. What exactly were these people doing during this period of time? They were enslaved. And it's just really insensitive, honestly, to me, that you seem to be one of the only establishments that provides no education on this historical kind of motif that you have going on.
Better. The historical
it's
motif.
All just fun and games to you.
Yeah.
Well, it's not fun and games for us. So, Cracker Barrel, if you would like to actually respond to us, we'll be more than happy to still listen. Perhaps you could salvage something out of this.
They haven't responded.
To everybody else that is joining us publicly on this conversation, unfortunately for them, perhaps we could do something positive with this. Perhaps we could move the conversation a little more proactively. Maybe on social media, we could start a hashtag. Hashtag racist rockers. How about that one? Hashtag racist rockers.
Oh, there you go, buddy. You got it. You nailed it.
Hopefully, Cracker Barrel will finally be labeled for the people that they are, glorifiers of racism, colonialism, and sexism.
If you eat at a Cracker Barrel, you are glorifying colonialism and racism because of the rocking chairs. We have to have politically correct furniture. We have to have politically correct restaurants.
If nothing else, just the rockers.
Just the rockers. Yeah, if you've ever sat on a Cracker Barrel porch, you are embracing a racist historical motif, he said, to attempt to bring people back into a time where, and see, this is ridiculous. I feel like this is ridiculous to most black Americans. I think most black Americans would look at this, this white guy.
I think this is ridiculous to most Americans in general.
Well, yeah, you're exactly right, but I'm saying we're talking about racism here, and I think I've never once thought. Has anybody ever thought of that in those terms? I mean, the minutia here. They want the entire society to be restarted on a completely different level.
My question is
without white people. By the way, I think
this says Antifa's message to Cracker Barrel. Up until this point, even with my research into Antifa, I've never heard of this message, like anyone complaining about this.
Well, logically though, this is where you have to go.
Well, yeah.
Logically, you have to tear everything down, and that's what I've read. I read an article in the Jonesboro Sun by the editor Chris Wessel. I commented on the Facebook page. People are in favor of taking down these statues, and they have no idea. They have done no research on where it actually leads, and it leads to people. If you think this is just the fringe, no. The whole element is fringe.
If you want to know where this leads, read the book 1984. That's exactly where it leads.
That's exactly right, Joe. You're exactly right.
Like that book.
Let's burn the rocking chairs.
Exactly. That book is a perfect example of where this will lead us if we continue to let it happen.
Yeah. Burn the rocking chairs. It's kind of like burning the spinning wheels in Sleeping Beauty. Not quite, because that was actually just anyway. All right. So, point is, can you imagine if this continues, and the only thing we can hope for is law enforcement. When these folks get violent, because their ideas are so ridiculous, you're never going to convince anybody with that. But CNN actually had a report, I watched a little bit of it, where they were interviewing these guys. They weren't critical the way they should have been, but these guys were saying, yeah, we believe in violence. We believe that that freedom of speech stops where the community says it stops. That freedom of speech can end if the community basically wants to come together and murder you. That's where we're headed. It is a very dangerous place, and it's got to stop. It really does. Now, I'll take your. I know actually, Joe, you've got to get out of here a little early, so that's going to take our phones off. But I'll take your text messages: 870-275-9799, 870-275-9799. No, you go ahead. So I want to move on now. from that ridiculousness, and I want to talk about Conduit for Action's new article, because if you don't know about Arkansas politics, then you're not going to Conduit for Action. You're not listening to this program giving you Arkansas news from a perspective that you don't get anywhere else. And but Conduit for Action has a new piece out specifically about Arkansas politics and the revolving door. The headline here, From Legislator to State Employee. And it's not a long read, but it's something that you need to be aware of, because we actually had, I think, a mock poll on Facebook last year about which elected representative or senator was best in line for the next state job. And it was interesting, the votes. A lot of people on the Facebook page are very smart in who's going to get the next job. But Arkansas prohibits, this is what you got to know. Our state of Arkansas prohibits a state legislator from becoming a registered lobbyist for 2 years after leaving office. Yet, a legislator can leave office at any time and immediately become a well-paid state employee, doubling or tripling the salary he had as a legislator. Now, that is wrong, but we've seen it. We saw it with the DHS liaison Kelly Link. I believe Bill Gossage also, State Representative Bill Gossage, got a government job. You see this all the time. In the case of Kelly Link, they created a brand new. They deny this to this day, but they created a brand new position for Kelly Link. And this is a guy who went from going to be from the chair of the state House Committee on Healthcare to being a liaison between DHS and the legislature, a brand new position. Perfectly legal. So, I mean, you get the right legislation through the committee, you bullet through, and then you get rewarded for it. That's what they're doing. They are using your money to pay off people. Over the last several years, many legislators have been hired as state employees upon leaving office. To take a state job, some have even resigned in the middle of a term of office. Does that bother you? Does it bother you that while the governor's trying to push his agenda through the legislature, a legislator can be working hard to get a job with the governor? It should bother you, folks. The revolving door from legislator to state employee did not begin with Governor Asa Hutchinson, but it hasn't stopped either. In 2016, 2 state legislators resigned from office to take state jobs with his administration. Now is the time to start watching to see which legislators may be in the next wave of state employees. Several legislators have already announced they will not be running for the legislature in 2018, and since it is still early, more may be making that decision. Some may be ready to go home, but others may already be thinking about a state job that they'll get in the future. There are at least 2 state representatives who are running for seats held by conservative Republican senators. But should these challengers lose, don't count them out as the governor's favorites for future state jobs. In fact, you probably shouldn't count any legislator out as one of the governor's future employees. What do you think? Should Arkansas law require a cooling-off period before a legislator can take a state job? Do you think a cooling-off period should be adopted in the 2018 fiscal session? Or do you think legislators should continue to have the ability to take a state job at any time, even if it means resigning in the middle of a term? Is taking a state job so different from becoming a lobbyist that the two should be treated differently? Those are all great questions. And this story, again, is up at conduitforaction.org. You can sign up for their emails. I would encourage you to do that, their email list. It's interesting here is Conduit floats the idea of adopting this in the 2018 fiscal session, which would take a special vote in order to adopt a policy issue such as this and make it a new law. But they can do that. But there is a call right now to, I saw this on Facebook, to reverse a law that really did slip through my view, and that is the new ATV four-wheeler law in the state of Arkansas that these geniuses down at the Marble Palace decided to pass. There's one legislator on Facebook, Mary Bentley, that said that she was lied to, that they were told that the bill would do something that it is not doing. Right now, if you have a four-wheeler, they got a new law in the books that says you can't go within 3 miles of your property. You can't go within 3 miles of your truck unless you're on an actual trail, a designated trail. And there's a story on Facebook right now circulating where people have been ticketed using trails to get to official trails. And because they park somewhere and use an unofficial trail to get to an official trail, they're being ticketed by the Arkansas Game and Fish. And, folks, I got to tell you, I mean, this is the absence of liberty. This is a retraction of it. This is people not understanding. And it should be a crime. It should be a state crime with a hefty penalty. You should go to jail if you lie. If you lie to the Arkansas legislature to get your bill passed, and it happens all the time, you should be prosecuted. If you give false testimony at the end of that table, you should be prosecuted for it, because there have been too many laws that have been passed down there based on flat-out lies, not half-truths, but complete 100% knowable lies with intent to deceive. With intent to deceive. There have been people that have perpetrated fraud against General Assembly members and by indirectly us, the people that sent them down there. When these bureaucrats go down there and they lie, they deceive, when state agencies go down there, the biggest lobbying arm at the Marble Palace is not the special interest, as much as I can't stand insurance companies and hospitals and everything else. They are technically supposed to be private. I know we can't really tell where they end and the government begins at this point, those two industries. But you can't begrudge a private industry from lobbying. You can't. It's their right to do it. It's freedom of speech. You can spend money to send people down there to lobby for you. I think it's wrong in many cases, right? But you can't begrudge them for doing that. The biggest lobbying arm at the Marble Palace is government itself. That's what you got to realize. It's government itself. It's DHS. It's the Arkansas Game and Fish. It's the Arkansas State Police. It's every bureaucracy you can think of. The Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality. The Arkansas Highway Commission. Every one of those agencies, they are the biggest advocates for big government growth. And some of these legislators, they give them the benefit of the doubt where they should be so much more hostile. Your default position as an Arkansas legislator should be to be hostile to every bureaucrat that is trying to tell you what a piece of legislation is going to do. To be skeptical. And those may be strong terms, but have you looked at the state of Arkansas government right now? There's not a lot's changed since the Democrats were in control for 138 years. The Democrats are still in control, at least the ghost of the Democrats. Their ideas have not been ejected, have not been taken out. And I'll tell you why. I criticize the Republican Party. Look, I'll admit I'm contradicting myself here from last hour. Because on the issue of getting senators to resign, the Democrat Party and Mike Beebe have more character than the Arkansas Republican Party. I said this last hour. Paul Bookout resigned. Governor Beebe and the Arkansas Democrat Party urged Paul Bookout to resign, knowing that they could lose the seat, and they did. Why won't Asa Hutchinson and the Arkansas GOP do the same thing with Jake Files? How can any one of you out there, even you big government Republicans that can't stand me and you can't stand this show, how can any one of you say that Jake Files still needs to be in office just so the governor can avoid a special election and make sure he gets a yes man in? How can any one of you say that right now the brand of the Republican Party is being furthered and advanced by Jake Files remaining in office? And those of you who think it's wrong and won't stand out, you guys, you need to. There's always time to do the right thing, and right now there's time. Call on Jake Files to resign. If you're in the General Assembly, call on Jake Files to resign. Go to Facebook, make a statement, make a tweet, do something. You don't even have to mention the governor. You personally should be calling on Jake Files to resign. It's an embarrassment. It's time for it to happen. We're going to take a break. You're listening to the Paul Harrell program. And it's brought to you by Conduit Media Group. Back in just a moment.
Bob Maloney here from ASA News The Parrot. Breaking news from the Capitol in Little Rock. Over now to our new on-site reporter, Susan Shenanigans. Susan?
Thanks, Bob. The governor has just announced that a blue ribbon task force is to be formed.
Today, I'm asking your support for a blue ribbon legislative task force to be created and directed to recommend further reform.
Now we go live to the chamber to listen in for more information on the task force.
I hereby call this session into order. First on the agenda for today is the formation of the Blue Ribbon Task Force. Is there anyone who would like to give their thoughts on the task force?
Yes, as someone who's deeply conservative, why is the governor choosing the color blue for this task force? Sounds like he's really a Democrat loyalist. Why not a red ribbon to prove he's a true conservative?
Well, I represent Walmart, and we agree with the color of the task force ribbon. The color blue is best consistent with the Walmart brand.
I object to this choice. Blue is the wrong color ribbon for this task force.
Well, who are you?
I am Mr. P.C. Wrights, and I represent Target, and we want the ribbon to be red, not blue.
Hold it right there. This seems like a tough decision. Why not ask the governor to call a special session at a later date for an important decision as this?
I think this is something worth talking about. I motion that we decide the color of the ribbon today.
I second it. Fine. We can decide it now. Does anyone have any other suggestions for the color of the ribbon?
I think the color should be white.
Whoa. Hold on. Definitely not white. I agree with Mr. P.C. Wrights. Maybe we should choose green for the farmers.
You like the color green because you are a farmer. I think it should be purple, so we can display how Arkansas is an extremely moderate state.
Why are we even discussing this? Shouldn't we be talking about tax reform instead of wasting time with this?
Well, the people have spoken. They believe this is worth talking about, so we are deciding this now.
Excuse me, sir, but shouldn't the color of the ribbon be rainbow to include all types of people?
Please, silence your phones.
I just received a call from Walmart HQ, and they agree with, what was your name again? My name is Fabulous. They agree with Fabulous that the color should be rainbow.
Target concurs with the decision of it being rainbow-colored ribbon.
Is there a motion to make the ribbon rainbow-colored?
I motion to make the color rainbow.
I second the motion. The motion carries because I said so.
The committee will now vote and not be on record to keep the people in the dark. Back to you, Bob.
Thank you, Susan. And thank you for listening to ASA News, The Parrot. Next up, there are reports of a gorilla on top of the Capitol Dome demanding massive sums of taxpayer cash. His name? Medicaid expansion.
PHP Parody.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Thanks so much for being with us today. Can't do the program without you listening. Here I am on the command side of things for those of you watching because Joe, our board operator / producer, he had to leave a little early. Now, when I'm back here, it always makes me, appreciate how complicated running the show is at this point. I want to remind you guys, you can always give me a phone call or a text message. The Liberty Machine never sleeps. You can leave a voice message, 870-275-9799. And if you guys want to help us out, you want to support the program in any way, we're about to have some pretty big announcements on that. But I will tell you, our Liberty Machine T-shirts are over at paulharrell.com. That's PaulHarrell. Feel free to pick those up at any time. Some of your text messages coming in. We have one text message writing that asking the question, if Governor Asa Hutchinson is going to rename Forest City. Well, if Walmart tells him to, then he certainly will. Of course, in response to that video that we just had, Antifa guy saying that Cracker Barrel was racist and everything else, another text message, because they mentioned that it was racist that in Cracker Barrel there are sometimes people of color, is what they say, serving people drinks and everything else, and hostesses. Somebody writing in, maybe Cracker Barrel should fire all African-American employees. Then they would be enlightened, ? You see, when you take this to its logical conclusion, it makes absolutely no sense. Not to mention, you got ESPN removing an announcer for the University of Virginia football game because his name is Robert Lee, and the guy is an Asian American. I mean, logically, you see where their logic actually doesn't play itself out. But, I mean, there's the same people that can't realize that the border needs to be secure
for the same reason that you lock your doors at night? I mean, we have a serious disconnect from reality. That's all the time we have for today, folks. Thank you so much for being with us. We will see you tomorrow. Arkansas, be safe.